Hello, welcome, and you're here with me, Dakota Fishman, and today I'm going to teach you how to do Guild Showdown. So, in case you want to know how to do it, this is what you need to do, okay? The way that MP Money was able to win our Division Showdown partly has two factors you got to consider. One, if a majority of your guild, and this is really what Guild Showdown is about, right, is that you want to pretty much, the majority of your players need to follow a certain set of rules. Okay, whenever you do Guild Showdown, what I recommend you do, and this is the way we do it, is when you are in the might ranking, we do from rank 1 all the way down to the number of players that are going to be participating in the Guild Showdown, which we know this in advance. Okay, the lineup is usually infantry, range, cavalry, or you can do, you know, whatever counter follows up whichever counter it comes by. So for example, most guilds, what they do is they'll predetermine what everyone's going to do, and most of the time it's a blast, and they do buffer. Now, I've seen two ways of buffers. You can do it with a wedge, or you can do it with a phalanx. In the case of doing it like this though, let's suppose the very first person was cavalry, and let's assume that maybe the first march they send is infantry, okay? Then if somebody sends range and they knock out your cavalry, what's the most logical next step? So assuming Soto was cavalry, the next logical step to that is infantry. What's the most logical step after infantry? Range. So in this case, it would be range, infantry, cavalry. But the concept is always the same. You're always wanting to counter the guy after you. So that way, if that guy falls, chances are it was probably range, or it was probably a counter to the actual unit type. And that's the way you stack your marches all the way from beginning to end. That's how you want to set them up. Okay, the very first march, it starts out with range. Okay, with 4 units in buffer, and then of course all range heroes. What does the first guy start off with? He's got mix. He's in range, he's in cav, and he's got a little bit of infantry, and he's in cav phalanx. Okay, so that cav phalanx is his initial buffer. Well, watch how this pans out. Okay, what happens? The guy loses. All right, the lesson in this is one, you need to have very good stats, but also you don't want to do mix. The mistake you make with mix is that you're not going to be strong enough, especially if you're in the counter phalanx. In his case, he was in cav phalanx, and because of the buffer, right, which in this case, an infantry phalanx works absolutely fine. You know, you can do this with wedge too, you know, and really I'll show you a little bit of a difference between the two. But if we speed up, again, here you'll notice this hit here, it's, you know, this is range, but now we're hitting cavalry, and you're hitting range once again. So you imagine how that's going to land. But now we get to a hit here, and in this hit, it's infantry versus range. Now again, you can expect what's going to happen. No surprise there. Now, if you look and compare this hit, okay, we know that the guy was probably in range, so the most logical conclusion, step up to that, would have been what? Well, we assume he's probably in infantry or cavalry. It's going to be one of the two. In this case, it was definitely infantry. So this guy here probably should have been in like, if we really thought about it, he should have been in cavalry, all right? But because he's an imp, now it's just a matter of beating imp on imp. Imp on imp is almost always going to be based on stats and the amount of troops you have left. So in this case, Zhao, okay, a little different, but not going to stew the pot too bad. Okay, because now here we see where this has gone wrong, right? Now you've got cav on imp, and, well, that's not going to work so well. Now, if you look at this hit, now you're range on cav, okay, no big deal. It works out. All right, but again, the principle of this is that you always want to be encountered the guy before you. So if you're going to be marching, and then essentially that's how you do it though. So like here, this is range on range, but this guy here, he's in an imp wedge. This guy here is in a cav wedge. Now, that doesn't seem like much. Alright, but the approach in this march here is different from the approach in this march. So if you watch it, you'll see that he actually loses, mostly because of the troop count difference there, just a 20k difference, right? But if you really think about that, it's interesting, right? Because I'll show you what the battle does. It's actually kind of interesting to look at. So again, you know, you've got your initial debuff, which is a negative 15% HP buff, right? Now you've got another 80%, I think, or 20% in this case, of buff into cav, which, you know, is kind of a questionable choice. But then, you know, of course, here you've got the infantry and the buffer, and it's interesting because essentially now you've got this, he's got the shield, so he's trying to shield his troops. And you can see how his front line here has now kind of dissipated, as you can see. But then the range in his back are still actually doing the damage and the DPS that they need to do. So it kind of works out. What's interesting about this, though, is that, you know, when you're comparing that to this, you can see like there was a good period of time where he was doing a lot of damage on the calves that he sent up here. And so it did take like a little while for it to actually like go all the way. Now, what is interesting is that like now if we go up a bit further. Now, if you're gonna ask me, well, what kind of familiar should I use? Well, the easy answer to that is I would always recommend using Aquarius and Weeble. For most starter players, that's probably going to be a really good choice. And then a matter of speak is, you know, if you can get down the road, obviously Gryphon is very good from that point forward. And then the next one from that would probably more than likely be any of the 15% damage increasing familiars or 80% boosting familiars in HP. Because in that game, it's a matter of keeping your troops alive. And so that's kind of what you want to do between increasing HP and attack. But ultimately, that is what I recommend. I hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, share it to your friends, and check out this video here if you want to save some money on Lord's mobile packs. I totally recommend checking the description of the video out, and see ya to the next video.